Let's talk about Middlesex football.
Middlesex. Middlesex.
When you think of football as a whole, you might think of the players of the past and present, playing in your favourite club's colours and stripes, the managers, the stadiums, the fans, the mascots, the scran. However, at times, at least in my experience, you never really hear about the locations, and by that, I mean boroughs, from Surrey to Berkshire, Cumbria to Devon. Which teams represent which borough? Of course, we know some of them, more so teams that play in the top levels of English football. However, when it comes to knowing that, such as Liverpool and Everton coming on the Merseyside, you never really hear about any local teams that may not be professional, such as the Grenadier. And that got me thinking. I live in the borough of Middlesex, West London. Where is the voice of highlighting these clubs that may not get the Sky Sports limelight in Middlesex? Just before we start talking about the teams, because that's what this is all about, it's important to kind of go over a little bit of the history of Middlesex. So during the Iron Age, about 500 years before the modern era, settlements existed at Brentford and Heathrow. And in the 1st century, Belgic tribes had established themselves in southeast England and Middlesex as it's known today. Middlesex was originally part of the Kingdom of Essex until the Danes overran Essex and captured London in the mid-9th century. From early times, Middlesex was dominated by the City of London, hence why now that it's become a part of London, you have other places that weren't part of it before, like Tower Hamlets, Westminster, Camden and Islington. So, briefly, that's the history of Middlesex. And now we can discuss the teams who represent this vast part of southeast England. I like to think we can start with a bit of leeway and start with the teams who represent the Middlesex County Football League, step 7 of English football. So as you can see, at this time of recording, 16 teams roughly playing between 12 to 20 games. You can already tell with a lot of these pitches in fields or ground sharing, it's a lot of grass. And majority of the time, in this time of year, they're postponed. Fortunately, it's getting to that point now where a lot more of these teams are able to play. And trust me on that, because I actually went to see one today. So coming to think of it, if you didn't know any of these teams before, the only way you're only going to be able to know they actually exist is if you're just like walking through a field, where it was in this case, if it wasn't for footballogy, you'd be just walking through one of the parks in Harrow and you'd realise that there's a team called Kodak and Hilltop Reserves. Now don't get me wrong, I think every single tier of English football, let alone world football, has a lot of pros and there will always be someone to pick up a con. I mean, I had a little one today. Just to show you all, they're all still training. 2 o'clock kickoff. 2:10. Let's see how long this is. A 2 o'clock kickoff at just after 2:15. Now imagine that was a Premier League game where it was 15 minutes ahead of kickoff. People will be losing their nuts. But for me, this experience, I didn't care. Because at the end of the day, there were over 20 people there just enjoying a game of football. You know? Most of these people, I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth again, but they might go through the whole grind of Monday to Friday just working, and then they know at the outcome of it is a game of football. So looking at all the teams, again, in the Middlesex Pacific League, you know, it's the 7th step of non-league football. It's the 11th tier of English football. For me, somewhat, it's a piece of identity where there's been people in my life in the past who I know used to play for these teams. I would argue it's a part of my own identity, which is why I feel Middlesex football has an integral part of English football because it's still part of the pyramid. I mean, even right now, off the top of my head, I can think of some Middlesex teams from the 11th to the 7th tier, let alone the 6th tier. Hendon, Hanwell, Hayes and Yedding. You've got Hillingdon Borough. So many. I'm going to try and keep on thinking. You have Harrow Borough. You have Rayners Lane. Uxbridge. Wealdstone. Everybody knows about Wealdstone. They're a Middlesex team. Most part of Barnet. Queen's Park Rangers. North Greenford. Brookhouse. And there's competitions in Middlesex. There's an actual cup. I've been a fan of football ever since I was 7, before the millennium, and I can safely say that for so many years I've tried to find that one with football, that identity with football. Is it talking about football? Is it making novelty quizzes about football? Is it playing football? But I think at the end of it, it's more so the fact that it does bring you an identity where you can literally just go to your local area, support a local borough team. At least in my case, it's Middlesex. And for all the times that I've been to a Middlesex team, let alone a match, I've really enjoyed it. You don't have to always go to a Premier League team, a Championship team, a League One team, a League Two team. Sometimes home is closer to home. And by that, I mean whichever team you follow that gives you the most pride, the most happiness on a weekend or even a Tuesday, then what's really stopping you from going out of your way to support your team, even if it is just watching them? That being said, I'm Kolpak. Welcome to my channel. Hopefully I'll be able to make some more these sort of things, whether they're more fact-based or still rather personal. I might make this into a series. If you do like what you see, leave a comment. I'm a big boy. Like, comment, subscribe. Take care of yourself and see you soon.